The latest Chicago Bulls news surrounding Zach Lavine had me and a lot of other Bulls fans up in arms on what are they doing. Even had one Kendrick Perkins come up to the defense of Zach Lavine and ask, "Where's the accountability from the Chicago Bulls front office?" We gotta talk about that, and we're gonna look at the Bulls preseason schedule that was released. Y'all know we're gonna talk about it and break it down, but you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Bulls podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me today, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. And a big thank you to our supporters out there. Thank y'all so much for supporting the show, and we hope so. We hope that that support continues. Thank y'all. But nonetheless, let's get into the conversation for the day. Now, we do know that a few days ago, Jamal Collier from ESPN released a long, lengthy article talking about a number of different topics when it comes to the Chicago Bulls. And one specifically is one that had me hot and pretty much like, what are we doing as an organization? Was that end of the article to where a anonymous team league source came out and pretty much had released a statement in this article questioning Zach Lavine's way with the Chicago Bulls, per se, for the lack of a better word. Pretty much going on and saying, I'm paraphrasing here, that Zach Lavine hasn't won anything. He's done things his way. Now it's time to do things the Chicago Bulls way. And if he wants to leave or if he wants to join, it's all going to be about buy-in. And that's just me paraphrasing. If you want to go out and check out the entire article, that's over there on ESPN by Jamal Collier. But the stuff that's been surrounding Zach Lavine has now caught the attention of some other guys. And honestly, I'm surprised that Kendrick Perkins even stood up and defended the Zach Lavine in this situation, questioning where's the Chicago Bulls accountability. He went on to say, and quote, "What has the Chicago Bulls front office done lately? Did they win at free agency? No. Did they win with draft picks? No. Billy Donovan got a contract extension," he said emphatically. What has Billy done? Zach Lavine in the Bulls uniform has been a two-time All-Star. He's been playing on a broken foot at times, on an injured knee at other times, and in 25 games that Zach Lavine played before his season-ended surgery, he averaged just under 20 points while shooting above 45%, which isn't the worst considering a small sample set. Despite it all, no accountability for the front office and the organization, and you're going to put all the blame on Zach Lavine. I just want to know who the source is. If you're going to say something, put your name behind it, end quote. And that's exactly where I'm standing with it. Again, the anonymous source should have been fired. The reason you should have been fired is simply because if this is a marriage, how they described it in this article, if this is a marriage that is set to end, and you want other guys to come on and say, yeah, we'll take your girl off your hands for you, big dog, or we'll take your gal from you, my gal. You know what I'm saying? We'll take your guy from you. You don't release bad information out there into the public if you want to get rid of them. That's it's just that simple. And where is the accountability? Most people, I don't even remember if there was ever any confirmation on what the contract extension was for Billy Donovan. We know that the front office received an extension as well. And what have they done? Yeah, in that first season, you know what I'm saying? They went out and got Nikola Vucevic, and then following that offseason, it was a spectacular offseason with bringing in DeMar, Alex Caruso, going to, adding Lonzo Ball, adding those additions to the team were great. But then once things started to go sideways, the Bulls never pivoted, or they at least waited too long to pivot. So that's when it comes to where's the accountability side of this. And that's why I've been on the side of, yes, we can criticize Zach Lavine for some of the poor play that he had, some of the poor decisions that we had, but let's not forget about this Bulls front office. Let's not forget about this Bulls front office on how they sat on the sidelines when Lonzo Ball went down 2 years in a row. How they still are sitting on the sideline pretty much when it comes to how you move and, maneuver pieces so you can be in a more competitive state as an organization. So we got to ask ourselves, How much blame are we putting on Zach Lavine, and how much blame are we not putting on the front office? You understand? You know what I'm saying? And that's been a Chicago Bulls way for a very long time, in my opinion. And that's what's been so frustrating with the Bulls front office. It's just looking at these guys and saying, bro, how every time is there a situation when it comes between player and coach? The coach is always favored, and the player eventually is gone. Then they go on to another team, and then they go on and take that team to the finals or have some type of success, you know what I'm saying, with their next team or on their next destination. And we looking at the Chicago Bulls like, man, did you really make the right decision? Like, I understood, you know what I'm saying, some of the, decisions made these past few years before this regime even came in, but the front office does still include Jerry Reinsdorf. And I know he is a businessman. I know he put these basketball guys in a position to operate and run his business. But at the same time, my guy, when are you going to step in and say, hey, let's take the side of the player because I want to win games? But we do know who we're dealing with in Jerry Reinsdorf, and he just mostly cares about the bottom line. But more specifically, I don't want to hear any excuses coming from AK or Mark Eversley, because AK literally sat in the during media, in front of a mic, and said, if we have a championship contending team, I can go into the luxury tax. I've received the green light. And I'm paraphrasing on that, but those were his words, not ours. So we got to hold these guys accountable. Like, dude, I understand that Zach Lavine hasn't been perfect. I understand that there were several things that went wrong when it came to injuries and et cetera, of the bevy of things that happened to this organization. But let's not act like y'all got a clean plate, bro. Let's not act like your house smell good. Let's not act like your shit don't stink. That's what it is for the Chicago Bulls. Let's not act like y'all have been clean, bro. And every single time, as it seems to where some turbulence is starting to hit this organization, it's always the players. When are we going to have these guys turn around, look themselves in the mirrors, and point the fingers at themselves? Y'all pretty much told us we want to bring championships to Chicago. Okay, if that's what you want to do, show us. If that's what you want to do, show us. Don't come out here just keep constantly saying the right stuff, and it all sounds great when you hear it. But when people show you who they are, at some point, you got to believe them. That's how I'm looking at the front office. At some point, you got to look yourselves in the mirror and say, yeah, it wasn't the best decision. Yeah, it's time to move on. You've seen guys like circling around the league that's constantly maneuvering to make moves for their stars, or really leaning on one of their star players to make a way or get an additional star. I'm looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves had Karl-Anthony Towns when it got Jimmy Butler. Didn't work out with Jimmy Butler. Then pivoted, when it got themselves and found themselves and Anthony Edwards still hung on the cat, but then they seen the potential in Anthony Edwards, and now we're gonna go ahead and get all these players in. We're going to add a big presence for Anthony Edwards up in the paint with Rudy Gobert, and we're going to build out this team with some veterans players and some young players so we can push. And look what it got the Minnesota Timberwolves. When you talk about Daryl Morey over there with the 76ers, no, it has not always been great for Joel Embiid in the playoffs, but the guy's constantly maneuvering around, and trying to build out the team surrounded by his best player. And right now, the Bulls' best player is Zach Lavine. It's been Zach Lavine for quite some time, even before that DeMar DeRozan came along. Once DeMar came along, there's an argument to be made that DeMar was now the best player. But I would say the younger player, the guy that you signed all the money to, your franchise player, deserved a little bit of some acknowledgement when it came to what you wanted to do as an organization. And the Chicago Bulls pushed Zach Lavine to the side, only tried to point out his mistakes, to the point to where you had Nikola Vucevic and Goran Dragic a few years ago feel like they was good enough or in a great enough position to address Zach Lavine in the locker room to constantly perpetuate the stupidity that comes out from the front office. That's what it was. That's what it was. And now we're going to sit here and act like you clean, you good? Nah, Bulls front office, y'all just as guilty as Zach Lavine, if not more, because you guys make those moves. You guys place those players on the team. You guys have the power to say who we're going to build around or who we're going to move and what we're going to accept in the trade, how much money we're going to give out. Those guys make those decisions. I haven't heard any report that Zach Lavine went to the Chicago Bulls and say this player is a must-have player. No. We know that the Chicago Bulls have moved and had their own vision of what the team should look like, and it looked pretty damn good early on, but it ain't been working. So look at yourselves and hold yourselves accountable. But that's enough talk about those guys. Now it's time to talk about the Bulls preseason schedule that was released. Now, the Chicago Bulls, they have 5 preseason games beginning October 8th with the Cleveland Cavs. Then they go on to face the Memphis Grizzlies. Then they face the Bucks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then another matchup before the start of the season versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Me personally, you asking me about this preseason schedule, I think it's the perfect schedule. I think it's a perfect schedule simply because now you're getting a much improved Cleveland Cavaliers team who's now buying into the talent that they have on their roster with Donovan Mitchell. Looks like they're going to hang on to Darius Garland, just re-upped on Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. So these guys are really, really buying in their young, fast-paced team that have a lot of weapons, and they have the three-point shooting. And when we're going to be able to come to this and see if the Chicago Bulls potentially new lineup, but it's going to be a new lineup, excuse me, because no DeMar. But can this now kind of retooled young team keep up with the Cleveland Cavs? Can they keep up with a young Grizzlies team? Can they keep up with an older Milwaukee Bucks team that has some champions on their squad, but has some really good players on there, even though they are up there in age? Then another team, the Minnesota Timberwolves, who has and that's towards the end of your preseason schedule, who were monsters last year defensively. They can absolutely be just as monstrous this season. So I think that's a good tune-up. And then that rematch against the Cleveland Cavs, a team that you're going to continuously see during the regular season. You face off with these guys again, and you get to see how you match up. How do you get what does the pace look like? Are you shooting a high volume of threes that's going to come at you with these other teams like the Cavs, like the Grizzlies, who's going to be more downhill, I believe, with their approach, but the Minnesota Timberwolves, who's going to run up and down the court as well and shoot a high volume of threes, and Alex Caruso, who is the primary defender on Anthony Edwards every time we matched up with him this past year. Hey, who's the next guy? Is that Patrick Williams? You know what I'm saying? Is that anybody else? How will the Bulls attack this? And I'm anxious to see what the starting lineup will be. Me personally, I'm just going to go out and give an early prediction on what that starting lineup should look like. And I think that starting lineup should look like Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Zach Lavine, Patrick Williams, and Nikola Vucevic. But I could be wrong, and it could absolutely go another way, but that is my prediction for what the starting lineup will look like at the start of the season. I believe Lonzo Ball will be worked into basketball, into playing basketball more. So I think they'll be slowly bringing him on, but they will let him receive his opportunities early on for sure. So I'm overall looking at this schedule as it being a good tune-up for the Chicago Bulls, and kind of it is preseason, so we're not going to be able to take everything from it, but we will be able to see how would the Bulls kind of play style, what would the Bulls play style look like now, moving forward, now that you don't have a guy that needs to slow it down a little bit more so he can, be a tactician and get to his spots in DeMar DeRozan. Now you get to see a bunch of young guys. You're going to see how Kobe White operate. You're going to see where Ayo Dosunmu fits in, where Buzelis fits in, and how other guys fits in. What does Dalen Terry look like? He's been working his tail off this offseason, working on that handle and working on that three-point shot. So I'm just anxious to see how it's all going to come together. But overall, I do love the preseason schedule from the Chicago Bulls, and I thank the NBA for it, because those young teams, most of them on there, they're going to be able to challenge and show the Bulls where they need to improve in and how can they get better. So that's what I'm liking. And y'all let me know down below, what are you liking about the preseason schedule, if anything, or you don't really care too much about it. Let me know down below. And then also comment on the topic of where's the accountability for the Chicago Bulls front office that we started the show off with. But that's it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for the continued support. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel before you get up out of here. And you still have time to get a voicemail bag in before our mailbag episode tomorrow. That number to call in and leave your take is 773-242-9219. Call in, state your name, give your take on anything Chicago Bulls, and you will be on the episode tomorrow. Thank y'all so much, Bulls Nation. Always see red. And of course, I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure.
Cognac.